Tonight on VCU InSight,
the Virginia War Memorial honors its fallen veterans.
Mayor Dwight Jones's redevelopment plan for Shockoe Bottom is underway.
And a new VCU program helps students with intellectual and learning disabilities.
All this and more?
VCU InSight starts right now. Good evening and welcome to VCU InSight. I'm Nick Wright.
And I'm Teresa Galasso. Thanks for joining us.
Our top story tonight. The Richmond City Council made the headway on the Shockoe Bottom redevelopment plan in its latest meeting. Onofrio Castilla is live in our Richmond newsroom with details. Good evening, Onofrio.
Good evening, Nick. In a 6-3 vote, the chambers were packed as the Richmond City Council voted to approve the Shockoe Bottom redevelopment plan. The plan has been controversial since its launch. Early last year, Mayor Dwight Jones announced his Shockoe Bottom redevelopment plan.
This will be the best ballpark in minor league baseball.
That ballpark would be built in Shockoe Bottom, along with an African American Heritage Museum and a renovation of the 17th Street Farmers Market, at a cost of roughly $200 million using public and private funds. City Council President and 2nd District Representative Charles Samuels says that while opinions varied, a greater amount of people in his district were opposed.
To be fair, it's more please don't vote for this instead of please vote for this.
Protesters gathered at the press conference last year to voice their opposition.
It was substantially less favorable before more information came out about the proposal. And now it's more favorable than it used to be, but still the majority of my district seems to be opposed.
The revitalization of Shockoe Bottom has been a hot-button issue for years. During the interim period before the vote, many businesses in this area have displayed signs like this in support of the plan. Shockoe Bottom's cigar factory general manager Gary Young says he was in favor of the plan.
It's a growing culture. It's a different culture, and time's going to change. And this is part of the things that's changing, for the city.
The Richmond City Council's split decision of 6-3 means the future of baseball in Shockoe Bottom is still uncertain. The council will have to vote on individual construction projects as the plan progresses. Back to you, Teresa.
Thank you, Onofrio. 3 soccer players from Virginia Commonwealth University are facing charges for filming a nude minor. According to the VCU Athletics webpage, the 3 males facing felony charges are freshmen. The suspects are Donovan Thiago, Bobby Joe Hopper, and Finley Wyatt. All 3 are being suspended from the team if convicted. If convicted, they could face up to 5 years in prison. A trial date has not been set, and VCU is pursuing its own investigation.
A $17 million wing is set to be added to the Virginia War Memorial. The expansion is dedicated to the ongoing war on terror, and construction will soon be underway. InSight's Joshua Jackson reports.
Anthony Gauze was a unit supply specialist in the war in Afghanistan. And for him, every picture on the Wall of Honor tells a special story.
I believe last year when I was here, Private First Class Leslie Jackson, her dad came by to visit the Wall of Honor because he heard that it had been moved to the Virginia War Memorial, and he really wanted to see it.
Having the faces and the names of Virginians who gave their lives in combat gives the Virginia War Memorial its reputation as among the best to honor its veterans in the country. Executive Director John Hatfield is looking to further its efforts by creating an expansion honoring Virginia soldiers who died in the war on terrorism. This move is unique because of the ongoing nature of the conflict.
Names of that particular war. In this case, I think that it's appropriate that we honor those men and women that have died and then add the new names, which we hope there are none, but if there are new names, that those are added annually.
The memorial's expansion includes a 350-seat auditorium, a long-distance teletraining studio, and a 200-space parking deck. Such changes will improve the parking capabilities of the lot I'm standing in. Construction is scheduled to begin in late summer, finishing up in 2015. For VCU InSight, I'm Joshua Jackson.
The Virginia War Memorial will be offering new monthly educational programs. An architect and engineer for the construction of the new wing have yet to be selected.
Smartphone users are having a hard time ignoring the automatic alerts being sent to their devices. Public safety agencies like FEMA, the FCC, and the National Weather Service are teaming up with cell phone service providers to send out automatic alerts in case of emergency. The Wireless Emergency Alert System is sending out government-authorized nationwide texts in cases of emergencies, like Amber Alerts and Weather Alerts. Many smartphone users didn't realize their devices had this feature, and it can be turned off in the phone settings.
A well-known landmark in Richmond just received a brand new name to go along with its $60 million renovation. The Landmark Theater is no longer. The historic Richmond site that opened in 1928 is now the Altria Theater after a grand unveiling last week. A crowd gathered to witness the new marquee that honors the company responsible for a $10 million donation to renovations. The Henrico-based company Altria gave the donation to the overall $60 million facelift. Among the speakers at the event was Mayor Dwight Jones, thanking the company for its contribution. Renovations to the theater are scheduled to be finished by October.
A VCU legend is retiring. Dr. Henry Rhone is the Vice Provost of Student Affairs and Enrollment Services at VCU. He's been with the school almost since the beginning. InSight's Joshua Jackson is in the studio with the man who, for many, is synonymous with VCU.
I am here in the studio today with Dr. Henry G. Rhone, the Vice Provost for Student Affairs at VCU. Thank you very much for being here, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So, you've been here at VCU since 1970. We're talking about 4 decades here. What was it like back then for you?
1970, very exciting year. I remember being a part of really a whole new team of people coming to VCU. We were a commuter institution, mostly townhouses, buildings that had been changed into classrooms and offices, a very excited faculty and staff and administrators. It was a fun place to be.
So what are some of the key differences that you noticed from being here today and being here then?
A tremendous growth in the number of students over that period of time, from something less than 20,000 to now 32,000. Particularly fast growth in residence halls, housing for our students. In the past, students were mostly commuters. Now we have close to 7,000 students living in university-owned properties, and the development around VCU has increased in terms of the number of apartments for students. Also facilities. Believe it or not, 916 West Franklin was my office. The student center. The Commonwealth Times was on the top floor and the radio station was on the bottom floor. We had a little snack bar in there, and that was where all the activity took place. Since that time, we have the student commons, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Tremendous growth in facilities for students. Recreation center, we didn't have any. Now we have recreation centers on both campuses, very nice centers, if you will. So those are the things that have been very positive and really outstanding in terms of the growth over the 40 years.
So with this growth of the residence halls and the commons, what was that process of getting that off the ground? Because you were at the forefront of that.
The process is always one of demonstrating the need for having such. What are the demands from students? A lot of it has to do with what kind of institution you want to be. Does having a student population on campus make a difference? We found that to be the case. Living in residence halls has a positive impact on retention. Students who are connected to the university tend to do well and to stay longer. So you have to make a case. You have to make a business case, too, for residence halls. They are what we call auxiliaries. They have to stand on their own feet financially. So you have to present a product that students want and are willing to pay for.
So your teamwork is a big process for you. Teamwork is a really big factor in this, am I correct?
Absolutely. You've got to have people on your staff with a variety of skills. You've got to have people who know things that you don't know.
Absolutely.
If you're, quote, the boss, the biggest mistake one can make is that I know everything.
Absolutely. I've been speaking with Dr. Henry G. Rhone, soon to be retiring from VCU. Dr. Rhone, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck to you.
You too. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Shamrock the Block has been a Richmond tradition for the last decade. This year, the location is changing from Shockoe Bottom to Boulevard. Richmond.com says Shamrock the Block caused a lot of controversy due to the violent outbreaks that happened last year in Shockoe Slip. The festival will start at Movie Land on Lay Street and will end at Nsuboka on Boulevard and Broad. The event will be held on March 15th.
VCU professor Dan Smith died last weekend, and students and faculty are grieving the loss of a well-loved teacher. InSight's Zarmina Wasim has more on his story.
Dr. Dan Smith died on February 8th from complications related to a bicycle accident 8 months ago. He was 74 years old. Smith taught at VCU, John Tyler, and the University of Richmond. Charlie is a graduate student at George Mason University. He took several courses with Smith and served as a teaching assistant.
One of the things that he taught me that I still carry with me today is to be open and to listen to everyone's point of view. No matter what label is stuck to it, whether it be liberal or conservative.
A former businessman and priest, Smith taught both business and religious studies as an adjunct professor at VCU. Some students expressed their grief on social media. Trevor Johnson says, "I wish he could have had a larger platform in which to teach. The world really could use more minds like his."
This is the room where many of Smith's students met him for the very first time and fostered what they say are lasting relationships with him. Students aren't the only ones who say they've lost a member of their community.
Jihad Abdulmumit is a play producer and met Smith through his acting work. Abdulmumit says he remembers Smith as more than an actor.
He may also be helping to build the set and break it down and move the chairs and serve the food.
The VCU School of World Studies says it is starting a scholarship in Smith's name. He leaves behind a legacy that is both personal and academic. For VCU InSight, I'm Zarmina Wasim.
For more information on the VCU Scholarship Fund, check the School of World Studies website.
There's now a dollar figure attached to the flooding that caused Sanger Hall on MCV's campus last November. The Commonwealth Times says the flooding caused $6 million in damages, all of which will be covered by insurance. The CT says city water gushed from a ruptured pipe into Sanger Hall's basement, leaving it submerged in 18 inches of standing water. The water was 8 feet deep in the mechanical room, which caused the building to lose power. Officials are now looking for a long-term solution to keep this from happening again. Pink Boutique has been a staple in Richmond for the last 30 years. It recently closed and is now leaving behind not only a legacy, but questions about other Carytown businesses. Libby Sykes is the owner of Pink Boutique, a Richmond store that has been around since 1983. Recently, Sykes closed the boutique due to more and more competition and failure to make ends meet every month. Sykes says that she feels a weight lifted off of her shoulders, but that it is also bittersweet.
So I'm okay. I've made peace with it, so I'm okay. You would have talked to me a month ago? Not so much.
The area has thrived as a center for high-end retail shops and boutiques for almost a century. With Pink closing, it leaves room for concern for other retail stores in Carytown. Carytown is home to over 250 restaurants and stores. With Pink being one of the most loved and respected, it is making people wonder what will be the next to leave. Susan Thorpe works at Chow Boutique, which is 2 blocks away from Pink.
It is a concerning thing, and anytime a business closes in Carytown, it's very sad and it is concerning.
It has also been hard on Pink employees as well. Many of them have worked there for over a decade, but are now realizing that they have to move on.
Really establish ourselves as a Richmond icon, fashion-wise, and we're ready. We're ready to move on.
Sykes says that after Short Pump Mall and Stony Point Mall came in 2003, that business started to decline. Not only did the malls hurt business, but also the 2008 recession hit it hard. With Pink being one of Carytown's anchor stores over the years, it is needless to say that their closing has everyone feeling a little blue.
Us just huddled and hugged and cried. So that was good.
Pink Boutique is closed for good and has no plans to open anywhere else.
VCU English professor Suzanne Cox recently won an award for her newest book. InSight's Onofrio Castilla is in the studio with Suzanne Cox.
Studio today with Suzanne Cox, an associate professor of literature at VCU, whose most recent novel, The Kingdom of Little Wounds, won the Prince Silver Medal Award from the American Library Association this year. Thanks for being here, Suzanne.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yep. Congratulations on the success of your book.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So, Suzanne, tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, I would describe it as a dark fairy tale about power as expressed through women's bodies. That's kind of the intellectual, feminist anthem version. But all the old fairy tales are really about power and women's bodies anyway. So it's set in the Renaissance in 1572, and it's about a seamstress who has been disgraced, a slave who is mute and works in the royal nursery, and a queen who's going crazy, and all the children in the nursery are sick. So they're trying to rescue and save the kingdom thereby.
Interesting. Now, you've been a professor here at VCU, an undergraduate professor and an MFA professor. How has your experience teaching at the school contributed to the writing of this novel?
Interestingly, I started this right when I started the job at VCU. So, or at least I started the research for it. I had another book that was coming out. And there's a nice give and take in the creative writing classes where, you know, you get inspired by what students are doing. You don't steal from them, but that sometimes there's some spark in their writing that brings out what you need in yours. And the literature classes is great. I can kind of plan what I teach around what I'm interested in. So lately I've been teaching Proust and 1920s literature because that's what I'm writing about. But you know, things slow down at certain points in the school year, so you learn a sort of rhythm for the writing and the teaching, grading, committee work, all that stuff.
Now, I noticed a lot of feminine themes throughout the book, as you said recently. On your website, it says, and I quote, "Young women's bodies are the battlegrounds in a tale of palace intrigue set during the Scandinavian Renaissance." What is it about the female experience that you were trying to get across to the reader?
That language comes from my publisher, and I like it because it sounds so epic. I was interested I'm a woman, and I wanted to think about how women who were excluded from the patriarchal power structures, especially in the Renaissance, how they would have gotten around some of the fairy tale-like villains, or you know, the regular power structures that we all know about, like the wars, kings, child marriages, you know, the brutal medical practices back then. You know, gynecology was very harsh. I'm trying not to reveal too much of the horror, but most of the horrors were worked out on women's bodies, which is true in a lot of the old stories we have down, handed down orally.
Right.
And historically, I mean, I feel you write a historical novel because you want to tell a story that couldn't have been told at the time. And this story definitely would have been erased. So that was what drew me to those characters.
Fascinating. I've been speaking with author Suzanne Cox. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you. Those great questions.
Wine enthusiasts were in their glory last week. The Greater Richmond Convention Center hosted the annual Virginia Wine Expo. The annual Virginia Wine Expo is not just a place for wine or winos. Representatives of everything from BMW to Bold Rock cider and tea makers were there to take advantage of the turnout. The 6-day event series took place at the Greater Richmond Convention Center from February 18th to February 23rd. Attendees were able to keep a complimentary Rydell crystal wine glass as a souvenir. Part of the proceeds also go to the Susan G. Komen Foundation to find a cure for cancer.
Have you ever gotten a ticket even though the parking meter wasn't working? It might be because some of the parking meters are solar powered. Olivia Whittam is live in the newsroom with details. Good evening, Olivia.
Good evening, Teresa. Some parking meters in Richmond are solar powered. On days that are cloudy, they tend to malfunction. This leads to some drivers being ticketed when they try to pay but can't. This is a familiar sight around Richmond. Some new solar-powered parking meters aren't getting enough sun to charge them, so they don't work properly, keeping parking attendants busy and drivers angry.
It's always an inconvenience to find a green flag on your windshield.
Chris Dovey teaches at VCU and came out of work to find there was a ticket on his car when the meter wasn't working.
It was one afternoon, and more than one afternoon. I come down and I park and I find the meter that is nearest my car not working. I am in a rush and I have to go to class, so I left a note in my car saying, meter not working. It was evidently disregarded and I got a ticket.
Despite the problems with the meters, the city is planning to invest in more solar-powered meters. The city has around 70 right now, but they plan to almost double that number, making solar-powered meters the main pay station in Richmond. Richmond parking manager Stephen Bergen has some insight on the advantages of solar-powered meters.
Well, energy efficient, supposedly. We do have some issues with them here and there. We don't have to run, obviously, electricity, which is a major expense.
He says that officers are supposed to chalk tires when the machines are down for the allotted time. However, for Chris Dovey, he's still not sure.
But I can't trust the parking meter ladies.
If you have been ticketed when a machine is not working, you can go to City Hall to appeal the ticket. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you, Olivia. Are you a fan of the TV show Top Chef All-Stars? Then you'll be glad to know that one of the contestants is opening a restaurant in Richmond. Graffiato's will open here this spring. This is the second location for Mike Isabella's restaurant. The other one is in D.C. It will be in the former Popkins Tavern at Broad and Jefferson. The building itself has been around for 100 years. Mike Isabella says that he's planning to update the interior of the restaurant, but hopes to keep the integrity of the space.
VCU is part of a growing trend on college campuses. The university is providing free, healthy food to students in need after opening a campus food pantry. Stephanie, a VCU student who wouldn't say her last name and did not want to be on camera, uses Ram Pantry because she cannot afford food on her own.
Before Ram Pantry, I only had nutritious meals when I went home to see my family, and that's not very often.
Last September, a poll of VCU students said more than half of over the 3,000 students who took it had gone without food in the past year because they didn't have the money. Ram Pantry is not funded by VCU, but depends on public donations from student organizations and Food Lion grocery stores. The pantry is located on Cathedral Place on the Monroe Park campus. With the help of Food Lion, VCU organizations, and the surrounding faith community, Ram Pantry has fed over 200 VCU students in their first 2 weeks. VCU employee Terrence Walker created Ram Pantry. Walker says the mission is to meet the needs of students who are struggling with the cost of food.
We've seen an increase with this over the last several years, and we thought it was just a great idea to open up a food pantry to specifically meet the needs of VCU students.
Over 6,000 cans, equating to 4,000 meals, has been donated by Food Lion, giving Ram Pantry about 1 month's worth of food. Ram Pantry is the only member of the College and University Food Bank Alliance located in Virginia. VCU students can take up to 20 items from the pantry, but Stephanie said she got everything she needed during her first visit. Ram Pantry is open every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And finally, a new federally funded program at VCU just had its first graduates.
The program aims to help students with learning disabilities navigate parts of college that might otherwise be difficult. InSight's Emily Akiyama tells us more.
Rachel Dudley is a typical college student at VCU. She takes classes, has a job, and is active in the community. The only difference is her reading disability.
I get mixed up with my B's and my D's a lot.
Dudley is one of 13 students in a new program called ASET in college. The program gives students with intellectual and learning disabilities a chance to have a meaningful college experience and career training. The program started in 2011 with a 5-year, $2 million grant by the U.S. Department of Education.
About 10% of the population has a disability. That's 1 in 10 people. But that doesn't mean they could be any less successful at a university.
Only 27 schools across the country received this grant from the U.S. Department of Education to start programs. VCU is the only program in Virginia. Program coordinators say the money is being used to give students a more competitive edge in job markets through career exploration and internships. VCU Education Dean Chris Walter Thomas says growing the program to help more students is a priority.
I hope that programs like this can help build the skills and confidence of other young adults who may not have thought of themselves as students who would go to a university.
Dudley agrees.
I think you shouldn't pass the opportunity up, because in the long run it can do really good for you.
Dudley hopes that with the ASET program, she can move on from her job at Martin's and become a veterinarian assistant. For VCU InSight, I'm Emily Akiyama.
ASET coordinators say they are planning on enrolling 5 more students in the fall to expand the program.
Well, that sounds like a great program.
Absolutely, and we wish them the best of luck.
Yes, we do. Well, that's it for this edition of VCU InSight. Make sure to check out our website at insight.vcu.edu.
You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under VCU InSight. Contact us with any stories you'd like to see on our show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick Wright.
And I'm Teresa Galasso. We'll see you next time.